I can't believe Kara's wedding is next week, I told my aunt. Denise went quiet. Then she said, Megan, it already happened. 6 days ago. 100 guests, my parents, cousins, even people Kara barely knew were there. I was the only person still waiting for a wedding already over. Then, Denise added, they told everyone you refused to come. That was when the hurt turned colder. 3 weeks later, Kara called. I thought she was ready to explain why she had lied. Instead, she asked to borrow my lake house for a post-wedding weekend. I said no, and before I hung up, I made one decision: I was done arguing. From then on, I would let their assumptions expose them. Megan was 38, worked as a senior commercial risk analyst in Milwaukee, and had built a life that looked ordinary from the outside and carefully earned from the inside. She made good money, paid her own mortgage, and 6 years earlier had bought a modest lake house on Green Lake after selling her first condo and saving for the down payment. It was never a family property. Somehow, over time, everyone stopped calling it Megan's Lake House and started calling it the Lake House. That small change should have warned me. Growing up, I was the dependable daughter. Kara was 5 years younger, more social, more impulsive, and usually the one everyone rushed to comfort. I was the one people called when something had to be fixed. Forgotten airport pickup, Megan would come. Mom needed help understanding an insurance form, Megan would handle it. Kara needed someone to proofread a lease, move furniture, rescue a birthday plan, or drive across town at midnight. I knew you'd come, she always said, for years. I heard love in that sentence. I didn't hear the assumption. When Kara got engaged to Caleb, I was genuinely happy for her. I helped compare vendors, reviewed contract language when she asked, helped with the bridal shower, and bought them a wedding gift before the date even arrived. I wasn't competing with my sister. I wasn't jealous of her wedding. And until 2 months before it happened, I had no reason to believe she didn't want me there. Then Kara asked to use my lake house for a wedding party weekend. 14 adults, alcohol, a pontoon, overnight guests. I told her no. It was the first time in years she asked me for something important and didn't hear yes. I thought she was disappointed. I didn't realize she had taken it personally. And I definitely didn't know that one refusal was about to change the date of a wedding I still believed I was invited to. Kara didn't argue when I refused the lake house weekend. That almost made it worse. She just said, right, of course, in that flat voice people use when they want you to know you've disappointed them. I tried to explain that the house comfortably slept 8, not 14, and that 14 adults drinking around a dock and a rented pontoon was more risk than I wanted to take on. I even sent her 3 larger rentals nearby and offered $1,000 toward one. She never answered. A week later, she called again. This time it was money. The wedding had started with a budget around $45,000, somewhere between upgraded flowers, a premium open bar, additional videography, and late-night catering. It had climbed past $60,000. Mom and Dad had already contributed $12,000. Kara asked if I could front $15,000 until after the honeymoon. Is something going unpaid that would cancel the wedding? I asked. No. Then what's the $15,000 for? She listed the upgrades. I asked whether she and Caleb could reduce any of them. Her voice changed. So first I can't use your house, and now you won't help me with the wedding I am helping you. That's not what I asked. I took a breath. I love you, Kara, but I'm not financing choices you still have the option to change. She hung up before I finished. 2 weeks later, Mom mentioned that Kara's venue had a problem with the ballroom. Unexpected repair work meant the wedding could either stay on October 18th in a smaller room or move 1 week earlier and keep the original space. I asked what Kara had decided. Mom said she wasn't sure yet. That was the last update I ever received. Kara and Caleb chose October 11th. The venue sent revised information electronically to the guests. Everyone received it except me. Kara removed my address from the update list. Mom knew, Dad knew. I didn't. A few days later, I texted Mom that I had finally picked up my dress and hoped the weather would cooperate next Saturday. She replied with a heart emoji. Nothing else. At the time, I thought she was distracted. Later, I understood that was the moment silence stopped being avoidance. It became a decision. 6 days later, I called Aunt Denise on my lunch break. We were talking about nothing important when I said, "I still can't believe Kara's wedding is next week." Denise went silent, not distracted, not confused. Silent. "Megan," she finally said, "it already happened." I smiled because my brain reached for the easiest explanation. "What do you mean, last Saturday?" I stopped breathing. "No, the wedding is October 18th. Another pause, then her voice changed. "Oh, Megan." I stood up from my desk and walked into an empty conference room. "Denise, what happened last Saturday Kara got married?" For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she said the sentence that hurt worse than the date. "They told us you chose not to come." I sat down. "Who told you that I thought you knew?" "Your mom said you and Kara had a disagreement. Kara told people you needed space." I opened the wedding website while she was still talking. The date at the top said October 11th. There were already a few professional preview photos. Kara walking down the aisle, Dad beside her, Mom crying in the front row, Caleb smiling, then group photos, cousins, co-workers, neighbors, people I had met once at Christmas, more than 100 guests. There had been room. There had just never been room for me. Denise kept apologizing, but I barely heard her. The wedding had been mostly unplugged, and Kara had asked guests not to post publicly until the photographer released previews. I wasn't active enough online to notice anything unusual, and apparently Kara had restricted what I could see anyway. They only had to keep me unaware for 6 days, and they had. I called Mom. She answered immediately. "Megan, did you know the date changed?" Silence. That was enough. But I asked again. "Mom, did you know?" Yes. I looked at the heart emoji she had sent after I told her I picked up my dress. Did Dad know? Another pause. Yes. I closed my eyes. "Okay. Megan, please," I hung up. Kara texted that evening. "I know you probably heard. I need some time before we talk." No apology, no explanation, just another request for patience from the person everyone expected to have the most of it. The next morning, Denise called me again. This time she sounded angry. "I asked around." She said, "Everyone was told the same thing." "What thing?" "That you knew the wedding moved." My stomach tightened. "And that you refused to come." That was when I understood the real betrayal. My sister hadn't only kept me away from her wedding, she had made me responsible for my own absence. 3 weeks passed before Kara finally called me. I almost let it go to voicemail. When I answered, she sounded careful but strangely normal. "Can we just reset?" I looked at the wall across from my desk. "Reset," what she sighed. "Megan, I know you're hurt. I know the wedding situation was bad." The wedding situation. You know what I mean. I did. She wanted the result without naming the decision. There was a short stretch of small talk, then her voice brightened. "Actually, I wanted to ask you something." Of course she did. She and Caleb wanted to host a post-wedding thank you weekend for the people who had helped them most. "Where?" "Well," she paused. "We thought the lake house would be perfect." I almost laughed. "Who's we?" She started listing names. Mom and Dad, Caleb's parents, her maid of honor and husband, the best man and his wife, another couple from the wedding party. Almost every person she named had been standing in photographs from a wedding I had spent that Saturday unknowingly waiting for. "How many people?" 10, maybe 12. "You already invited them." "I asked everyone to keep the weekend open." "Kara, it's not a huge deal. I contacted a caterer and put a refundable hold on a pontoon. But nothing is final." I leaned back. "What did you tell everyone about the house?" Another pause. "That we were looking at using the family lake house." I stared at the phone. "It isn't the family lake house. You know what I mean?" "I do." "That's the problem." Her tone sharpened. "So can we use it or not?" "No." Silence. Then, seriously, "Yes. You're doing this because of the wedding." "I'm saying no because it's my house." "The wedding just taught me you don't hear that word very well. So you're punishing everyone else I didn't invite them." She hung up. An hour later. Mom called. Kara made a mistake. "Did Kara call it a mistake?" Mom hesitated. "That's not the point. It is to me." "Megan, can we please not ruin another family event?" I looked out my office window. I wasn't invited to the first one. I can't ruin the second. Mom went quiet. For once. I didn't fill the silence for her. The lake house weekend never happened. Kara had to cancel the pontoon hold and tell everyone they needed another plan. I thought that would be the end of it. Then Aunt Denise called me 2 days later. She sounded reluctant. "There's something your mother said after the wedding that I think you should know." What? Denise exhaled. "She said you'd be hurt." I waited. But then she said, "Megan always comes around." That sentence hit harder than Kara asking for the house. Because suddenly, I understood why nobody had been afraid of losing me. They had never believed I was capable of leaving the role they had assigned me, for the first time in my adult life. I stopped trying to prove I was reasonable. I stopped explaining why I was hurt. I stopped answering every call the second it came in. And I changed one small thing that told me more about my family than any argument could have. Mom and Dad had a standing smart lock code for the lake house. They had used it for years when I invited them up for a weekend or needed someone to check the place after a storm. I deleted it. Mom noticed within 24 hours. "Did you change the code?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because from now on. If you want to use the house, ask me. If I say yes, I'll send you a temporary code." Her voice tightened. "You don't trust us? I don't trust assumptions anymore." She went quiet. Priya, my closest friend, understood immediately. "They're not shocked that you're hurt," she told me over dinner. "They're shocked your hurt has consequences." That sentence stayed with me. A few days later, Kara texted, "I'm sorry everything got so out of hand." I read it twice. Then I replied, "That tells me you're sorry about the fallout. It doesn't tell me you understand what you did." Her answer came almost immediately. "What else do you want from me?" "Nothing." I wrote, "That's the point." Mom called the following Sunday. She wanted all of us at dinner. You, Kara, Caleb, your father, Denise. "Nobody leaves until we clear the air." I'm not interested in a dinner where everyone tells me to move on. That's not what I'm asking. Then we talk about what actually happened. Not forgiveness, not family unity. What happened? She agreed. I almost canceled twice, but I went. Dad barely looked at me when I arrived. Denise hugged me. Caleb seemed uncomfortable but friendly, which confused me. Until then, I had assumed he knew exactly why I hadn't been at his wedding. Kara arrived last, for the first 20 minutes. Everyone talked about food, weather, anything except why we were there. Then Mom finally said, "We need to fix this." Kara folded her arms. "I've apologized." "No," I said. "You apologized for things getting out of hand." Her face hardened. "You're acting like I banned you from the wedding." I looked at her. "Were you expecting me to show up on a date nobody told me Caleb stopped moving?" He turned toward Kara. "What does she mean nobody told her?" And suddenly I realized my sister had not told the same lie to everyone in that room. Caleb looked from Kara to me. "What does she mean nobody told her?" Kara's face changed. Not guilt, calculation. I answered before she could. "The wedding moved from October 18th to October 11th. Everyone got the update except me." Caleb frowned. "That's not what you told me." Kara looked at him. "Caleb, you said Megan knew the date changed and decided not to come." The room went silent. I turned to Kara. "Was I invited?" She exhaled sharply. "That's not the point." "Was I invited?" She looked down. "I didn't send you the new date." "No," I said. "You let me keep preparing for the wrong one." Mom closed her eyes. Dad stared at the table. Kara finally snapped. "Every time I asked you for something, you said no." I almost laughed. Twice. They were things that mattered to me. The lake house and $15,000. You made me feel like I had to beg my own sister for support. I offered you another rental. I offered money toward it. I gave you a wedding gift. I just didn't give you everything you asked for." Her eyes filled. "You don't understand what that felt like." I stared at her. "And because I wouldn't give you my house or $15,000. I stopped being your sister long enough for you to get married." Nobody answered. Mom finally whispered, "We should have stopped it." I looked at her. "You weren't keeping the peace. You were keeping me uninformed because you knew I was the one least likely to make you pay for it." Dad swallowed. I told myself it was between you two. It stopped being between us when you helped her lie. Kara wiped her face. I'm sorry. I shook my head. Not tonight. She stared at me. I'm not asking you to apologize tonight. I'm asking you to understand what you're apologizing for before you call me again. Then I stood up. For once. I didn't stay to make everyone else comfortable. And for once. Nobody asked me to. 6 months later, the lake house felt quiet again. Not lonely, quiet. Mom and Dad no longer assumed they could come whenever they wanted. The first time Mom texted, "Would it be okay if Dad and I came Saturday afternoon?" I stared at the message longer than I should have. Such a small question. It changed everything. Kara and I weren't back to normal. I wasn't sure I wanted normal back. We met for coffee occasionally. She stopped asking for favors. Then one night she sent me a message. I punished you for saying no to me. Then I called when I needed another yes. I told everyone you chose not to come because admitting what I did made me look cruel. You didn't deserve that. For the first time, she wasn't apologizing for the consequences. She was naming the choice. I replied, "Thank you for finally saying what happened." That spring, I spent a weekend at the lake with people I had actually invited, sitting on the dock. I realized I hadn't lost my family by setting boundaries. I had only stopped confusing usefulness with love. They spent years saying, "Megan won't mind." The wedding was the day I finally did. If this were your family, would you forgive Kara, or would some things change forever? I still think about the wedding sometimes, not with the sharp anger I felt at first, but with a kind of sadness for what could have been different. I wish Kara had trusted me enough to be honest. I wish my parents had chosen one uncomfortable conversation instead of protecting a lie. And maybe I regret how long I taught everyone that I would always be the one who adjusted, forgave, and made things easier. But I don't carry it like a weight anymore. I'm not waiting for another apology, or wondering what I should have done differently. Some relationships changed, and I'm still learning what those changes mean. But the silence in my life feels peaceful now, not empty. I still love my family. I just finally understand that loving them doesn't require me to disappear whenever my boundaries make them uncomfortable.